Hello, welcome back to Guitar 101, third installment. I'm Craig Neidlinger, spelled Neidlinger, and today we're going to talk about some gear first, and then we're going to play along with Bob. That's right, Bob Dylan. First things first, the last time we did this, I attempted to show everybody how to tune off of the 5th fret, and we had a problem with the camera. So real quick, I'm going to go over that one more time just for your benefit here. The first thing you want to do is tune the first string open E to E above middle C on the piano. Once again, don't turn it too high if you're not sure about it. Always go low until you get kind of used to the pitch and matching them up with the piano. Because if you tune too high, of course, when you try to tune the lower strings, they're going to pop on you. So play it safe, stay low. So we're going to say, okay, first E, above middle C, piano, open first string, tune them up. The next thing you do is you count off 5 frets, go to the 2nd string, press. The object here is to get the 2nd string to sound identical to the pitch of the 1st string. So here we go. Yeah, it's not perfect, but you know. I had to tune to Bob Dylan before I came. That should explain everything. Okay, so the 3rd string is the only string you're going to back it off to the 4th fret. Once again, you press the 3rd string, you get it to sound identical to the pitch of the 2nd string. Once again, I'm having to think backwards. So here we go. Yeah, it's all right. Then we go back up to the 5th fret, press the 4th string, tune to the 3rd, and then 5th to the 4th, and 6th to the 5th. Okay, and then of course you check it with a chord. Ooh, that sounds nice, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, next we're going to talk about strings today. First, right off the bat, well, I have an electric guitar string, Mr. Neidlinger. That's what my students are always asking me, what kind of strings do I get? Well, the best brand that I have found that Gibson actually uses to string up all their Gibson guitars from the factory in Nashville are Gibson, well, these are Gibson pure bright wires. And they just have a certain feel about them. I've been playing Diodarios for over 25 years until I played a Les Paul with some of these on it. And there's just something about them. They last about as long as any other string, but they feel great on the fingers. They don't dig in like some other strings I've played. And now I'm going to talk about the gauges. We talked about gauges last time. Well, a gauge is an indicator of how thick these strings are. So the higher the gauge number, the thicker the string is going to be, and the harder it's going to be to press. Now, Jimi Hendrix, for example, loved playing with what we call a 10 gauge. Or in some cases, Stevie Ray Vaughan liked playing with an 11 gauge or a 12 gauge string, that is. Now, what we want to look at is the very top number is the indicator for what the gauge of the 1st string is. That's what you want to look for. And when you go to your friendly neighborhood music store, you say, I want a 9 gauge. Well, the guy's immediately going to say, okay, we'll give you a 9 gauge here. And you can see it goes from 9 to 42. 1st string is a 9 gauge. So you know they're light gauge string. Plus, you can look over here, which is even easier to do, and it says ultra light gauge. So you know anything light gauge is easy to play. Okay, moving on. Now, I like the 10s on my Les Paul, and they're just a plain old light gauge. A little harder to play on some guitars, but on the Les Paul and on this guitar, this is a Gibson ES-175. The ES, stands for Electric Spanish. Did you know that, Richard?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought it was Electric Super Guitar.
Yeah, I like that too. They named those guitars back in the 40s, 30s or 40s or something. They called it Electric Spanish. So maybe I should name this guitar with a Spanish feminine name. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Lucita.
Anyway, so we have ultra brights for the 9s, easy to press, work well on a Stratocaster. Bright wires, light gauge, the 10s, work well on Les Pauls or the Electric Spanish 175. And now let's talk about acoustic guitar strings. I get more questions asked about acoustic guitar strings because most of the kids that come into my studio, Guitar 101, say, what kind of strings do I have on my acoustic? Because they don't have electrics yet. I say, well, okay, these are elixirs, and they are light gauge strings. I highly recommend the light gauge strings for acoustic guitar, especially if you're just starting out. They're the easiest gauge for acoustic. Also, your heavier gauge is for guys who just wail away at the guitar like I don't know, Pete Townsend of The Who, because the heavier gauge strings on an acoustic will hold their tune longer, and they're just harder to pop. So unless you're doing power chords or windmill swings like Mr. Townsend, I would suggest light gauge elixir strings. Now there's all kinds of brands of acoustic guitar strings. The elixirs are somewhat different insofar as they have the nanoweb coating on them. This is technology from NASA, believe it or not. Really what it is, the 4th, 5th, and 6th strings of your guitar are wound strings. They have managed to somehow figure out this technology where they put a tube, a clear, I think it's Teflon, a tube over each one of those strings. Therefore, oil and dirt and debris from your fingers can't penetrate this tubing, and that just makes your strings last. I had a set of these guys on my Taylor acoustic for over a year. They just didn't wear out. The only strings I replaced were the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings because they're not wound, and of course, your oils and chemicals